so much, Malebo, for joining us. We really appreciate you availing yourself to be part of the series where we're looking at AI and the South African news media landscape, talking to people working in this space around how they think AI is shaping press freedom. So to begin with, can you just give us a bit of background around some of the work that you have been doing around artificial intelligence?
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Sandra. Just to give a bit of background, I'm the former editor-in-chief of Newzroom Afrika, which launched in 2019. So in that role, one of the things that I was doing was to train my journalists, in the area of digital storytelling, including artificial intelligence. And after leaving Newzroom Afrika, I then transitioned to do training on a full-time basis, focusing on digital storytelling and, of course, artificial intelligence. One of the things which I'm doing, and I think is very, very paramount to anybody who is doing any work around AI, is ethical use and responsible use of artificial intelligence globally and locally. So that is pretty much where I'm doing and where my focus is, to look at whether AI is a friend or whether it is a foe. So, and I think with that background, that is pretty much the kind of work that I'm doing in the area of AI.
And in your work, what would you say AI is? Do you see it being a friend or a foe when it comes to press freedom? What are your views on some of the most significant opportunities that it presents, as well as any pressing red flags that you see on the horizon when it comes to artificial intelligence in news?
I think artificial intelligence, it can be a foe or it can be a friend. It depends on the users. By and large, for me, I do emphasize the importance of understanding what is artificial intelligence. By its definition, it means that the intelligence, it is not natural. And because it is artificial and not natural, it means there has always been, or there must always be a figure or a person behind the use of artificial intelligence, especially when it comes to its responsible use. I always see artificial intelligence as the first copy, as a draft of whatever any person, including journalists, is working on. The final draft is what the editor or the user has gone through to make sure that it meets all the ethical standards and it is responsible use of artificial intelligence. So it can be a friend in the sense that it does have some form of efficiency. It promotes speed, it promotes productivity. And there's good use, of course, of artificial intelligence. It is used, to predict the weather, to predict business transactions. And of course, it is used in hospital, to do some of the work that where there's lack of manpower or where there's lack of skill. So it does play a major role in its positive use of artificial intelligence. And then it becomes an enemy, obviously. It becomes a foe if it is used in areas like deepfakes, like cybercrime, or where people propagate ideas that do not fit the public space or good use of artificial intelligence. So it depends on the users, but by and large, it is for the good use of the public out there.
And you mentioned that one of your areas of interest is around the ethical use. One of the things that keep coming up is the fact that the models that are used and the data set that artificial intelligence is trained on is very Western based, and in that sense brings a lot of bias. So, do you have any thoughts on how, given the state of AI and its bias towards the West, we can ensure that it serves democracy in our contexts and preserves access to credible information for South Africans and other areas or countries like us?
I think that question is very, very important because it touches on the core or the business of what these technology companies are dealing with, i.e., profit motives, objectivity, and so forth. It touches on the issue of algorithms and how those algorithms are programmed to promote engagements. And some of the engagements are at expense of objectivity in the media. So I think it is very, very important to understand how those algorithms are working. But more importantly, the issue around algorithm bias for me, it worries me because, as you know, technology is always ahead of policy. So it leaves the policy makers very, very much weakened. And some of them are paralyzed because it's something that policy makers or regulators around the world do not have any control over, because it is in the hands of those who own these tech giants, these AI companies. So that is pretty much one of the things that are of concern to me. And then also based on what I've just raised, I'm also worried by the collusion between, if you look at Donald Trump on the one hand, a politician, and Elon Musk, who owns a tech giant. So that collusion is not healthy for press freedom, in the sense that you have a politician colluding with a tech company. And it's one of the things that we need to guard against, that we don't have that abuse of power, abuse of platform. So that collision is extremely very, very important. And also, just to say a little bit more about the collision, why it kills, or it is a big threat to media freedom. Elon Musk has allowed Donald Trump at the global stage for him to use Twitter, now known as XI, to propagate ideas that are very, very radical and anti-freedom. And of course, it is a well-known and documented thing that Donald Trump is anti-media, that he thinks is against him, and he'll always attack them as promoting fake news. And that alone is one of the biggest threats at the global stage against a media freedom.
And then lastly, in the South African context, you've mentioned you were also involved with training. What would you say are some of the key skills that journalists need to be able to use AI effectively, and for newsrooms in particular to harness it for good?
I think for the journalist use of AI, I just wanted to talk about the foundation, because we lack the foundation, where as early as foundational level of our education, at a very, very early stage, we need to educate the masses out there about AI literacy. It is happening in countries like the UK. It is happening in progressive countries like in India, where at the foundational level, kids are taught about how to discern propaganda, how to discern deep fake and all that. I think journalists also fall in that realm, where they've got to be educated about the responsible use of artificial intelligence, where in some instances there will be a need for them to declare where they use artificial intelligence, because if they're not taught, how to discern deep fake, and that is where objectivity gets killed. That's where there's a big threat to media houses. So training in responsible use of AI is very, very important. Training is very, very important in understanding the ethical use of AI, where journalists can discern the deep fake news that is out there, where they can use detection AI tools, because these tools are available, where you can safeguard against the use of objectivity, and plagiarism also is a big thing in the media, where journalists just take articles without checking if there's a bias, where there's cybercrime, or to propagate certain ideas about certain politicians and so forth. So training is very, very important for journalists in responsible use of AI. But I think one of the things also that tends to lag behind is educating the masses out there about the AI literacy. Like I alluded earlier on, that there are countries which are leading at foundational level, teaching children about responsible use of artificial intelligence.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Malebo. I really appreciate you having availed yourself.